Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Friends List. We are joined today by a very special guest, Christopher Grant, Editor-in-Chief of Polygon. Welcome, Christopher.
Hello.
Is it okay if I call you Christopher?
I like when you call me Christopher. That's good.
It's very formal. I've brought Chris on the show to talk about something that is near and dear to all of our hearts, taking up a lot of brain space, mine in particular, I'm sure Chris's in particular, E3. And specifically, E3, what will be there? E3 leaks. What do we expect the leaks will be like? What kind of games? What will publishers be bringing on their shows? What is gonna happen? And I'm curious. I know Chris is probably curious. So let's sort of dig in. And I should mention off the top of the show, these are leaks that are wholly unsubstantiated. They are not our sources. These are being ripped off the internet, so expect them to be, a lot of them to be false. But, you know, you never know. Some of them could be totally accurate. It's all rumor and speculation, and that's what we're having. We're having some fun. We're chilling out. We're looking at rumor and speculation. So let's start with Nintendo. Chris, I know Nintendo is not doing a press conference this year. Well, they are, but they're doing, like, you know, the digital direct style press conference they did last year and have done over the course of the year. But do you think that they're going to have big software announcements at this press conference?
I mean, I definitely think they will, right? That's Nintendo's bread and butter, if you will, is software. I think the big question that I have for Nintendo, and I think a lot of people have, is will we see a decent amount of third-party support? Right? Is this going to be all first-party Nintendo games? Are we going to see, you know, we know we're going to see Smash Brothers, right? They have a tournament that they're doing, which sounds pretty interesting, right? In trying to kind of open up E3 to their fans. There's this Hyrule Warriors game, which is, you know, first-party-ish, sort of. But, like, what does their support look like? And for a platform that's sort of on life support, at least the Wii U specifically, not the 3DS, are we going to see Nintendo sort of on its own, you know, showing off more and more Nintendo games? Or are we going to see a sort of, you know, second push from third parties to try and succeed on that platform? You know, so there's this leaked rumor list of Nintendo games that I think Nintendo has already specifically said, like Shard of Nightmare, the new Zelda game on this list, does not exist.
I mean, that name, I certainly hope it doesn't exist because the name is absolutely terrible.
Shard of Nightmare. It's a piece of nightmare for you guys at home. I mean, also on the list for 3DS, Castlevania Symphony of the Night 2. It's like total fanboy fodder.
I wish, but yeah.
Put that up there. So they also have Mario Kart 8 on the list, which is a little strange.
Yeah, that seems like
out. But that's also like almost like a good if you're making one of these fake lists. You know, we know a lot of these lists are fake. You know, after a bunch of outlets pick up on them and report on them as being factored in, at least in some way substantiated rumor, somebody will come out and say, oh, hey, by the way, I made that up. But if you're making a fake list, man, you put on some of those, like something that Nintendo might do, like bring a game that's already released to E3. It's a pretty good effort at making it seem real.
Yeah, you throw in a little truth to enhance the lie. That's what they say.
Yep.
That's what you're supposed to do. In terms of third-party support, they mentioned Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate coming to 3DS. Sonic Boom, which I think is based on this new Sonic animated series that Sega is pushing. And
excited about it.
And Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call. Which is a game or a series that came out a little while ago with Final Fantasy characters and rhythm-based stuff. So this is sort of like a re-release of that. Yeah. Probably mostly BS, and we definitely shouldn't take too much away from it. But your point about third party is accurate, which is to say, I really don't think that Nintendo can turn around that third party boat until they convince third parties that this is a place they can make money, specifically on the Wii U.
And I think in order to do that, they need to come out with a lot of really killer first party games, and then also address some of the kind of significant platform shortcomings. And what I'm hoping that they do during their kind of, you know, Nintendo Direct on Tuesday morning at E3 is I hope they do pay a lot of attention to that platform stuff. And I hope it's not all about first-party games, because we know Nintendo makes great first-party games. We had, I think we had 2 of them on our top 10 list last year. Zelda and Mario for Wii U. And then Mario Kart 8 this year, we gave a great review to. It's a great Mario Kart game. So like they have no problem making great games. They can't get anyone to buy their platform. And so what I really hope to see from them, and what I hope the big surprises are, it's not a new Zelda game. We know they're going to make one of those. It's not another Monster Hunter. You know, I'm sure people will be excited. I'm sure it'll help move more 3DSs, but it's not what they need. What they need right now is to convince people that as a platform provider, they know what they're doing, not as a software maker.
Yeah. Achievements. I think that's pretty much all they have to do, and then everyone will jump right on board. Really, just me.
I think there's a bunch more, but I think that's maybe just you.
Yeah, I completely agree. The platform has a ways to go. Let's dive into Microsoft. Microsoft traditionally a little less good at keeping secrets than Nintendo.
They're really pretty terrible.
They're pretty terrible at keeping secrets. So we already know. So Halo 5 already got announced, right, with the name and everything.
Yep.
I don't think it has a release date yet. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think they said, did they say a year?
They might
check
have. According to this other leaked sheet that we're looking at, they're saying that Halo 5 will get a release date, which seems likely at E3. Based on everything we're hearing, it's not going to be this year, but, who knows? They could sneak it in.
They announced 2015.
2015.
So
Okay, so it's definitely not this year. We do know the focus this year is going to be on the Halo collection. So that's sort of going to be their Halo push this year. Feels like a bit of a stopgap solution. They know that they don't have like a big shooter coming out in the fall, so they're going to rely on this Halo collection, which brings together all of the primary Halo games, excluding ODST and Reach. Reach being my favorite.
Also notably leaked as well.
So again, generally secrets don't stay secret for long in the halls of Microsoft. Let's see some other interesting things.
And I would say even right here, like looking at this leaked list of Microsoft press conferences or press conference information, they have Halo 2 Anniversary, and it's like that's a pretty easy one to guess.
Yeah.
After Halo Anniversary came out, but now that we know the Halo Collection is coming out, and it's not only Halo Anniversary for Xbox One, but also Halo 2 Anniversary, also Halo 3 it's like the whole thing in one package. It pretty much nukes the entire rest of this list, right? Because you're like, we already have an inaccuracy on it. And that tends to be the way these things work. People get really excited about it because E3 is about reveals and it's about surprises. And now we had a previous episode of Friends List that I appeared on where we talked about like why these companies are nuking their own surprises, right? Announcing Halo 5 Guardians a couple weeks before E3, sort of anticlimactically. Far Cry 4 was announced in a financial earnings call, like in a PDF. Like that was weird.
It does seem like companies are not using E3 the way they used to, which is to say hold as many secrets as they can and then dump them all out in a 3-day period or even a 1-day period on the press conference day. It does seem like people are trying to avoid that rush. And unfortunately, the backside of that is your announcement sort of feels a little bit half-hearted because it's like, oh, it's Tuesday, May 15th, and we're announcing a big sequel. Like, it's just a random way to do it. Yeah, so your point about this, the list is accurate, which is to say the second they get one thing pretty much wrong, which they certainly did, the rest of the list is kind of bogus. But we're going to look at a few other things anyway, just because they're interesting. Gears of War, the Black Tusk game, Black Tusk being the developer, is working on a Gears of War game. That's not a surprise. Do you think we're going to see anything of this Gears of War game at E3?
I'm almost sure we'll see a trailer, right? We saw a trailer for their other project, which I guess was rumored to be called Shangheist. Or at least that was the...
God, I hope not.
Yeah. That was what they originally started working on. It was this, it looked kind of Splinter Cell-y. They showed it off. And then they said after they announced that they purchased Gears of War from Epic and it was now a wholly owned Microsoft property and that Black Tusk would be taking over as the studio responsible for Gears of War. About that other game, it was really interesting. They said that on stage at E3, they never called it a game. They called it like a project, or they said like this is what they're working on. And then they said we were quick to say it wasn't a game. They were working on technology. This was always the plan. We've always been at war with Eurasia. And I think we're going to see, if they're showing off a trailer for a game that they are no longer making, I think we're almost certainly going to see a trailer for a game that they now are definitely making.
Yeah.
And that might just be a title. But, if Halo 5 is coming out in 2015, if you want to alternate your two big shooter franchises, you probably do. What do you do with Gears of War? Is that going to be a 2016 game? Then maybe they won't show. I don't know. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they stagger this. And I think a lot of this is, a lot of what we're interested in at E3 this year is going to be software and what we see this year. This is the first full year after a launch year where, the PlayStation 4 had a very anemic launch lineup. The Xbox One had a better launch lineup, if only because it had more games. It still had a lot of dookie in there.
Sure.
But so this year,
now
we're
it's sort
really
of
looking
evened
at
out
software.
in terms of PlayStation and Xbox, which is to say,
For sure.
PlayStation has had releases since launch, and Xbox has had very few.
Yep, that is true. So I'm very curious to see what 2014 looks like, and for example, if that same cadence that you talked about holds up. Just this morning, they announced that The Order is delayed till 2015.
Yeah, that's a big loss for Sony. They definitely, I'm sure, are relying on that. It being a third-person shooter, almost their answer to Gears of War as a holiday season title, especially since seriously doubt that Uncharted's going to make anywhere close to this holiday season. So that's a big loss for them. I don't know what they're going to be relying on for first-party stuff this holiday season.
And for Microsoft, on this list, they obviously have Sunset Overdrive and Quantum Break as this year, which are pretty safe bets. I don't think either of them have been confirmed.
Quantum Break, I don't know if I mean, given the fact that Alan Wake tanked sales wise, I don't know if it's the safest of bets, but also that they're a little notorious for not hitting the best deadlines. But I'm super psyched for it. I'm a huge fan of Remedy and their stuff.
Also, new Xbox head and former Game Studios head Phil Spencer, Alan Wake superfan #1. So
that is a good sign.
Yeah. Lionhead, Fable Legends, we'll see.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff. The one rumor that is probably also bogus, but really got me very excited just at the prospect of it was a new Crackdown, which I really, really want because I
never got into it.
The original Crackdown was so good. The second Crackdown was kind of not great. It was kind of bad.
Yeah.
But the prospect of a next gen Crackdown, Sunset Overdrive sort of scratches that itch, but not quite the same thing. So
it also makes me wonder from a portfolio perspective. If they've got Sunset Overdrive, why would you have a Crackdown?
Right.
Rise 2 is also on this list. That seems pretty unlikely. The first one was met with not a lot of fanfare.
Yeah.
Rare is prepping a reboot of Battletoads in Perfect Arc. This is a go-to Rare rumor. If you're talking about Rare, it's oh, did you hear they're working on Battletoads? And I'm sure in some back room of Rare somewhere there have been, prototypes of a new Battletoads,
or just an HD remake of whatever.
Yeah, or even that. But again, if you need to win the living room, is remaking a super hard kind of platformer brawler. Is that going to be Microsoft's secret to success?
I think it's just a way to get the fanboys excited. If it is real, it's just oh, Battletoads, great. That's something you could just put a logo up there and people would cheer for it.
It's true.
Before we wrap it up, I wanted to dig into Sony real quick. Sony obviously has a number of titles that have sort of vanished off the face of the earth after being shown at E3. Most famous of which is The Last Guardian. Chris Grant, answer the question that everyone with the PlayStation 4 is asking. Where the hell is Last Guardian? Will it be at E3? Am I ever going to play this game?
I think they're still working on Last Guardian. I don't think they know what to do with it, and I don't think we're going to see it at E3. That's my official call. I don't have any inside knowledge. This is just from reading the industry. Sony is not shy about scuttling projects, and they have a lot of teams. Last Guardian's coming out of their Tokyo Studios. Tokyo Studios has a new manager in charge that's really been cleaning the place up. Came from Sony Santa Monica. Has gotten the teams kind of re-energized. Has got them really turning out software much faster than they did the entire PlayStation. Especially the first 2/3 of the PlayStation 3 generation. So that studio has a different focus now. And I asked Shuhei Yoshida, the VP of Worldwide Studios at Sony, about Last Guardian for the last, I don't know, 6 years of my career or something like that. And every time I would talk to him, he would say that that Team Nico is his, his Olympic team, right? It takes 4 years to do something. And so when we hit 4 years, I remember asking him about it, and he said, well, maybe not all Olympics come every year. It's like, they know that this is like an extended project. Sony's also been willing to invest in projects that go on a long time. Look at Gran Turismo. I think they also thought that Gran Turismo would sell.
Yeah.
So, is there a lot of patience for Last Guardian left at Sony? I don't know. But they also need PS4 titles. They also have had a lot of success with the core gamer, right? A lot of that core gaming audience was on Xbox 360 last generation, and a lot of them have moved over to PlayStation 4. So if you want to energize them, that's a great way to do it. There's also rumors, one of the most kind of persistent rumors because of a big image dump on NeoGAF, is Project Beast, which is the long-rumored spiritual sequel to Demon's Souls. Sony published Demon's Souls in Japan. They did not bring it to the US. Atlas handled that. And then Namco signed up the same developer from Software to basically make Demon's Souls for them, called Dark Souls. The sequel to Dark Souls just came out. Sony still owns Demon's Souls and has been contracted with the original director of the game, I think that's right, to do a sequel. And that's been like this kind of long-standing rumor. Meanwhile, Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 come out. So there's this rumor that Project Beast is that game. It's going to be for PS4. It looks really cool. Is it real? I don't know. I think, as somebody who's now 70 hours into Dark Souls 2 and like pretty obsessed with it, that's like the one, my fanboy buttons are being pressed by the idea of that being a real game. There's a bunch of other stuff here. Here's another example of a way to completely invalidate this list. Ready at Dawn, the Order 1866 will get a big stage demo, a big title for fall 2014. So like,
for what it's worth on that list, I would say they probably didn't know that the delay was happening by the time. Theoretically, if it's real,
maybe
they didn't know. That's a relative that might have gotten like internally official in the last month or so. So, they keep that stuff pretty secret, obviously, because of the financial impact of it. But I would also say take it with a grain of salt.
I think one of the big things that we know we're going to see is Uncharted, right? Easy guess. They already announced it at the New York launch event for the PlayStation 4. And Uncharted, that studio has been undergoing some issues. They've lost a lot of kind of senior management, senior staff on the project, including Amy Hennig. Yep. So it's going to be really interesting to see, how they present that game. And from my vantage point, it seems like there's a bit of a competition even inside of Naughty Dog between the Uncharted and then the Last of Us camps. And so, I don't know what that means for Uncharted.
It also feels like you can't just, for Last of Us, just do the same thing you've been doing. It feels like, or I'm sorry, for Uncharted, you can't just do the same thing you've been doing. It feels like if they're going to reboot not only the franchise on a new platform, but also the format of the franchise, which is to say, not just focus on like very linear cinematic levels, but maybe do something closer to like what Lara Croft Tomb Raider did with that sort of re-envisioning of the franchise. Now would be the best time to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think, Drive Club, maybe. There's a bunch of other stuff that we know Sony's working on, but Sony has never been short of quantity of software. It's just about pacing, getting it out in time.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of questions to be answered. Thankfully, the questions will not last very long. We've got E3 coming up in just a couple weeks. Polygon will actually be there covering every facet of it. We'll have videos, we'll have articles, we'll have interviews, pretty much anything you could possibly want from E3, except being there yourself. I'm sure you'd want to be there, but we can't help you there, unfortunately. We will be offering to you, so make sure you check back for that. I want to thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you.
And be sure to watch Friends List every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be here talking about all the latest and greatest in what you're talking about. So be sure to tune back soon. That'll be it for me. Good night and good luck. I made that up.